Hello and welcome to this episode of MindMeld, where we try and help you move up in life and not just on with it. My wonderful and amazing guest today is Madeleine Black. And you know what? It takes courage to speak the unspeakable. And for many years, Madeleine Black felt too afraid and too ashamed to utter a word of what happened to her. Violently attacked at the age of 13, her story is one of pain, but also of recovery, of strength, and forgiveness. Through her words, Madeleine hopes to help others find the courage to speak up, whatever their story, and to show us that it's not the traumatic events in our life that define us, but how we choose to reclaim our lives after them, and how we can become unbroken. Madeleine uses her personal and moving story of forgiveness to help end the shame, the stigma, and the silence surrounding sexual violence, enabling others to find their voice, whatever their story. In March 2018, she won the Amazing Strength Award at the number one magazine Amazing Women Awards, and in October of the same year was asked to be the patron for Say Women, a Scottish organisation which offers safe accommodation and support to young women who are survivors of sexual abuse and rape and who are homeless. She continues to work as a psychotherapist in Glasgow, and her memoir Unbroken was published on April 4th, 2017. There is a link in the description if you want to go get a copy. I actually wish I got a copy. I didn't realize you had copies when you were here in Namibia. Then I saw Monique carrying around a copy of Unbroken. I was like, where did you get that? No, it's just
I brought a few out with me and I just gave like 4 away. So I can send you an e-copy, don't worry.
Okay, cool. Or you can send me a book. I'll
send you a book. I'll send you a real book, a physical book.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. And then, a nice little description would be wonderful.
Of course. Pleasure.
So you actually asked me before we started if this is still relevant, talking about violence and sexual abuse and all kinds of things with this pandemic of the coronavirus. And we actually got talking, and I think we came to a point where we decided, it is still relevant because of a variety of different factors. How do you think the coronavirus has impacted women and abuse victims?
Yeah, as we were saying before, for some women, home is not a place of safety. Home might be where they're the most unsafe. And if they have to self-isolate with the very abuser that they live with, it's not going to be easy. And for a lot of kids, going to school is their sanity. So if the schools are shut down, it's going to be very hard. I have a sister who's living in Spain actually at the moment. She's not in an abusive situation, but she has one husband, 3 dogs, 4 boys. The boys are not allowed out of the house. She has no back garden. She has a roof terrace. She's allowed to walk the dogs one at a time, just very quickly. They can go to the pharmacy and go to the supermarket. If you're caught outside of those times, it's a bit like martial law now. You can be fined 25,000 euros, or you can go to prison for 3 months. I think that's going to kill you before the virus will kill you, living with 4 boys. But yeah, so it's really, it's challenging times right now for lots of different people.
It is a lot of challenges, but what can someone do in a situation like this to sort of like keep their sanity? I can't think of anything that would. It's such a difficult thing to be isolated, and especially if you are a victim.
Yeah,
right.
It's I have a different situation. There's lots of situations in my family. I have a brother-in-law with a cancer myeloma, so we can't go near him because he now has to isolate again. He's had a second stem cell transplant. I have an aunt who's on her way out, and the home have now stopped all visits. My mum is 80, and she can't let me go near her. I can't hug her or be with her, so she's going to go away up in the countryside in Scotland and hide away. So even if you're not being abused, it's just challenging on so many levels. Luckily for me, my home is good. I'm okay. So I'm going to try to use this time as creatively and as positively as I can, even if it's just tidying out the wardrobes or looking in the boxes that you were meant to do, but garden, read, listen to music. We have FaceTime. Look at this beautiful technology. I can speak to you in Namibia. We have Netflix. We can read. We can do stuff. It's not necessarily all doom and gloom. We have to find a way out. Well, I think I have to find a way to stay grounded, to stay sane. I'm now cooking more than I ever cooked before. I'm going to bake when I get off the phone to you. I'm going to make porridge bread. Somebody sent me a recipe. So find whatever you can find, I think, to stay as grounded as you possibly can, to stay as connected in. Because I think when we're not grounded or connected, and that's when the anxiety can get triggered and can get really, it can escalate. It can get much bigger if we're not careful. It can get really, we can get carried away with the fear that's around everybody. There's the fear is, we can feel it building. So just find whatever it is to keep yourself safe. Go for a walk, listen to music, do whatever it is.
That's very true, because we are social creatures, human beings. That's why we build cities and villages and all kinds of things. Absolutely. And there's something inherently comfortable by being surrounded by people that you know, people that you trust. And if you are one who, even if you're just depressed, or if you have some sort of phobia or anxiety of some kind, surrounding yourself with people that you trust and are close to you, it helps alleviate a lot of that stress.
Absolutely.
And like you're saying now, you can't even go and say goodbye to people that you love, and you can't even see people who are going through a tough time now. And as wonderful as technology is, there's no real substitute for human contact.
Absolutely. I mean, luckily I have my husband, and I have one child who is nearly stuck in Poland. We've got her home. I've got another one coming back tomorrow who's been in Israel on the program that's been cut short, so she's coming home. So I'll have a busy house again. But yeah, if you're alone now and to be isolated and not to have that human connection, you're right, we are social creatures. It's going to be really tough on a lot of people. My aunt in the care home, she just moved in a couple of weeks ago, so I can see her getting really depressed, because she said visits are what kept her going. She really looked forward to that part of her day, to everybody popping in and seeing her. And now she doesn't know how to work a smartphone, so we call her, but she's a bit deaf. It's really not the same, but we have to make the best of the worst situation. And now they're going to put in Skype calls through their office, so I'm going to be able to Skype her most days. But yeah, it's going to be a challenge, but it's really about what we do with our challenges in life.
So how do you think we'll deal with this situation afterwards? After everything is settled down, will we still be the same?
Well, I don't know. All I can know is right now. I try not to get caught in imagining what it's going to be like, but if one were to, it can't be the same, can it? I mean, I don't know if there'd be many businesses left out there for a start, and it's going to be different. I'm hoping that the good will come from it. Already near me on Facebook, there's been a group that's set up about volunteering. So anybody that's isolated or self-isolating, if you need some help with shopping or you need a prescription picked up, there's an army now already in like 2 days, 1,500 people that will volunteer to go and help you, walk your dog, do this, do that. And I think that is where I want to put my attention, to see the good that's coming from this, because it's always, love is always going to win. We have to really be there for each other.
Love will always win.
Always.
I really like that. And it's so true, because I saw so many different things in so many different places where that is absolutely true. Mm-hmm. For example, when New Zealand was hit by an earthquake and I was in Christchurch and I saw the buildings fall, and what happened afterwards wasn't about, it's somebody else's problem. It was all about, that's my neighbor, that's my friend, that's this, that's even strangers that I don't even know. It was never an us versus them sort of a thing. It was all about how we can work together to make the best of the situation, to move forward and to build up from what is left. And you know what? It really is true that love will win. If you surround yourself with good people, if you are open to new ideas, new perspectives, and I really do. I'd like that. I need to make that like into a T-shirt or something.
Love will always win over hate. Always. I mean, we met each other in Namibia at a conference, and we both heard Ulrika speak, and she really said that we is the new I, and it's more poignant than it ever was, that we need to think about us as a community rather than just be selfish and think of I. And this we're showing this right now, how it can't be more important than in this very moment, that we have to really, it's on all of us to look after this, to look out for each other.
It is true. It's not just you or me or them or they or it's us. It has to start with us. Yeah. And I think that's important phrasing, that we have to change our mindset from I to we. we is the new I like that.
Yeah, that's what she spoke about.
Yeah.
So I just thought, wow, it's so poignant right now in this moment. She couldn't have known what was, obviously, we couldn't have known just 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, how powerful those words are right now.
It is really sad of what's happening everywhere. And this isolation thing it's necessary. But I wonder sometimes, what can we do to stimulate our creative thinking while we're in this isolation? Like you said, you're gonna cook like mad and you're gonna unpack some boxes. What are some tips that you think could be
Well, I'm not a
helpful?
very good person to start with, because I said, right, I'm going to get up every day, normal time. I'm going to get showered, dressed. 11 o'clock this morning, I thought, I really need to have a shower. I'm still in my dressing gown. This is not a good start.
It's not a good start.
That's fine. Tomorrow is another day. But I lay in bed and I read my Kindle and I thought, you know what? What am I? It's fine. It's really okay. So, don't be too restrictive. Just go with whatever it feels like. If your day becomes night, so what? It's fine. It's really okay. You have to, I guess, if you really want to be disciplined, you can be, but you have to do what works for you. What works for one person is not going to work for someone else. So my sister in Spain actually has a classroom in her house because she teaches English as a foreign language. So she's super organized. She has her boys up, normal school time. They all do their schoolwork every morning. The Spanish teachers have sent all the work online. And then at lunchtime, they have their lunch. Then she does a bit of exercise with them. They run up and down the stairs, or then they help do some chores. And so she's got a good structure to her day, but hey, she has 4 boys. I don't have that energy in my house, but for someone else that might not work. So I guess you have to find what works for you. But this, because we have this technology, if you are struggling, you could go to YouTube. You could look up guided meditation. You could look up how to do some breath work, how to do some grounding work, listen to music, get a good film, connect with other people, do a webinar, maybe use this time to do some studying, some writing, create some art. There must be loads that we can do from our home. Cook all that pasta that everybody's buying. I mean, there must be, make some art with all this toilet paper. I mean, there must be.
I'm not sure
So
where
much
that
that we
came
can do.
in. I don't understand the whole toilet paper running out thing, but whatever. People are people at the end of the day. People are scared, and then they do things on impulse and out of reaction rather than action, and so things just happen. So whatever works for you, if it means covering your cat in toilet paper, or or cooking all that pasta, whatever it might be, I like that. So don't get too stuck in routine unless that helps for you.
Yeah,
So for
do
some
whatever you
people,
need.
yeah, for some people, routine might be just the thing they need to keep their sanity by doing
But
something
I
that they
think
can trust.
if you're getting really triggered by all the news, because when we feel that fear and panic, sometimes it triggers old fear and panic that's already in us. This is now speaking from a therapist point of view. Then maybe turn off your social media. Maybe don't listen to the news constantly, because I can see that I'm guilty of that. I'll get the news alerts on my phone and I'll sit down at 10 o'clock and watch the news, and it's too much. You can't keep up because it's changing all the time. So maybe take a break from the social media or the news. It's maybe not so healthy.
That's exactly true, because I was just this morning, I was constantly, like, for an hour, I've just been refreshing the Twitter feed, seeing what's happening. And every time I felt a little bit worse for it, I decided, you know what? It is what it is. Let's switch off and let's do something that's actually a bit more fun, a bit more acceptable, and let's just switch off the social media just for a bit.
Absolutely. So I'm trying to just stay in contact with all of my friends. I'm going to obviously FaceTime my mum every day while she's away, and we're now just connecting even more, even though it's not physically, just phoning people, FaceTiming, group chatting, WhatsApping, whatever, just to keep in contact and have that daily contact every day. That makes sense, but you know what I mean. Just try to if you're isolating, don't isolate yourself even more. Find a way to make contact.
Yeah, so reach out and make contact with someone. Yeah. And this might be just a way to make new friends on a digital scale.
Absolutely.
Reach out to someone who's also, especially someone who's isolated and who can't go out. That might be just the opportunity to make, to reach out and sort of mind meld with someone else about what they're doing and what's going through their minds. And you know what, my mate Alan Black always says, the best books to read are the people next to you. It's so true, because everybody's got so much knowledge and experience that they can share, and most people just share it willingly without any sort of asking for compensation or anything like that. So this might be just that opportunity to, like you say, learn something new. Reach out and connect with somebody and do what works for you. Don't get too stuck in routine if that's not helping you, but keep your sanity.
And I really do believe that nothing can last forever. I think of the word hope, and there's an acronym which is hold on, pain ends. So we will eventually get through this. I don't know how it will look when it comes out the other side. No, none of us do right now. But it can't rain forever, even in Scotland. There are sunny days. It's got to change one day. And already they're showing now in China that they've got it under control. There's less cases happening. So that's really hopeful.
You know what I really appreciated was Billy Silicani on the WhatsApp group for the Plan B Summit. He shared good news, right? A list of good news. Hospitals the emergency hospitals are closed down because there's not enough new cases to deal with it that's needed, and all kinds of stuff. And I thought to myself, how wonderful a perspective is that? Rather than focus on the negative, focusing on what's positive. What's good about it?
Absolutely. Everything is where we put our attention. We can focus on all the really dark stuff. We can focus on the good stuff. So my daughter was traveling for her course, architecture. They were in Poland, and then they were meant to go on to Budapest. The bus was going through Slovakia, so they knew they couldn't get to Budapest because Slovakia closed their borders. So she tried to get a flight back home, had one booked for Monday, discovered Saturday night they're closing the borders in Poland, so she had to get out before midnight. And so no flights, no buses, no trains, airport was pandemonium. They rented a car. She heard two other Scottish guys. She was with two friends. She said, how are you getting home? They said, we're going to rent a car. So 5 of them rented a car together. One of them was a long-distance lorry driver. I mean, how much better luck could you get? I don't know how she would have driven, because she drives automatic. She drives on the other side of the road. This was at night. They drove for 16 hours.
Wow.
They couldn't go to Berlin because there were no flights. So they drove to Düsseldorf. They found a hostel at 3 a.m, had a few hours sleep, went on to the airport. But the helpers appear when you need them. I mean, if at any other time you needed a long distance driver, right there, and he appeared. So that's the goodness that's coming out of it. And it was like a little community, a little clan of 5 Scottish people in this car, all driving together. And they were all sharing the charging point in the car. One was Googling, hostels. One was looking at flights. One was looking at this. One was finding the way in the car because the other guy's data wasn't working. But between them, they all got there together. And that's how it's going to be. It's going to be together.
You have to be open to accepting help sometimes, I think. If you just, like I was just saying, if you have that social distancing thing going on, but also on a mental scale, it doesn't help if you're not open to new opportunities, to new ways of doing things. And I must say, it takes great courage for someone to just ask for help. It really does. So I'm really impressed.
When you're desperate, she turned around and said, oh, you guys are Scottish. How are you getting home? And they said, we're going to rent a car. So are we. Then he said, just come with us, because there's 5 of us all together. So, and he actually lives 2 minutes from where we live, which is really weird. You measure him all the way in Poland. So, But there's a lot of good things coming out of this.
That's amazing, really. And people will find a way. Whatever happens with this virus thing, and it is serious, there's no one denying that. People saying, it's a 3% mortality rate, and that sounds minimum until you look at the numbers, and then it's a completely different thing. But whatever happens, I'd like to put my trust in humanity, in the fact that we are creative beings and we can survive just about anything, but we have to be open to new experiences. We have to be open to letting go of past regrets and past mistakes. And I think that's also a good lesson for now, is that if you have someone that you didn't like or didn't want to work with, now might be a time to reconnect.
Absolutely. And what's the point of holding on to all that stuff? Because it's only going to harm you, isn't it?
Right.
It's not going to harm anyone else. And that it kind of really echoes my story. I learned to forgive the two men who raped me. And just, as you say, I just let it go, because I was just bitter and sarcastic and angry, and they had no idea it was only harming me. So I eventually, when I saw that, it took a long time to see it, I realized I can choose. I can be bitter and horrible the rest of my life, or I can let it go. And I chose to do that. And life is so much easier from this place, much more peaceful.
Like you said, you can't change what happened, right? It's a fixed point in time and space. There's no changing that now.
Yeah.
But you still have the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Are you willing to sacrifice the rest of your life for one extremely horrible, bad day? And it was a bad day, and it was a horrible event that happened. But you can still choose to have a wonderful life the rest
Absolutely.
of your life.
It's not what knocks us down that's important, but it's how we stand back up. And I just refused to be defined by what happened to me. In some ways, I have to be grateful to these two young men, because they also taught me gratitude, because I was so very nearly killed by them. It made me realize that my life is for living. I'm going to enjoy it as much as I can. I'm going to live my life as best as I possibly can. And not that I would wish what happened to me on anyone. It took something quite extreme for me to really be grateful. I don't know if I would have had the same gratitude if it hadn't been for that experience, which sounds a bit odd. But yeah, I'm going to enjoy life. I'm going to live it as well as I possibly can.
And like I said, it's not like you wish this on anyone, but there are so many lessons happening every single day of our lives. And we can choose to listen to those lessons and learn something from them. We can accept that what's happened can't be changed. And we can make sure that it doesn't happen again, and that we can not just learn from it, but teach others how to deal with it as well.
Yeah.
And that's really what's so admirable about you, is that it's not just speaking on what you've learned. It's about sharing it and teaching others how to deal with it as well. As work as a therapist, it's helping others heal, because you've gone through that journey, and that's such a painful journey. And I can't imagine sharing that journey with someone else. I just don't think I've got that courage, or that sort of sense in me. If something happened to me, I just don't.
Yeah, but it was kind of the ripple effect. So somebody speaking out helped me to find my voice. And once I found my voice, I realized I could speak about rape. And it feels like a duty or my responsibility, because as you know, I believe in the power of sharing our stories. I think if they're heard at the right time, it can transform something for somebody. And I just intend to pay that forward. Now that I know that I can do this, it's important to break the silence and the shame and the stigma.
Yeah, and it's like you mentioned on your website, you've become a story healer. You're not just a storyteller, but a story healer. And I love that wording so much, because it really describes what you're trying to do here. You're trying to heal people with your story. And you're giving other people the permission to stand up and say, I've been through something similar. And because actually on the stage here in Namibia, you shared a story of a woman who listened to you on the radio, while you were on the radio, and then she had the courage to tell her child that same thing happened to her. It is amazing what the power of one's voice can do, the power of sharing.
It's the power of sharing our stories. I think, she would never have said what had happened to her. And it's my friends now has told me, they share loads of stuff. She's told her about other things that had happened that she never knew about. And she said it's just totally transformed her mum. And that's what really motivates me, that's to speak out. And I don't think I'm superhuman. We all have the ability to find our strength, our resilience, our courage, do the very things that terrify us. We can all do that. I'm not superhuman. We all have that ability. And that's really, even just the very fact of standing on stage, if that gives somebody hope that if I can do that, then maybe I can look at what's holding me back in some way. We can all choose to work the shadows, the dark areas in our life, so that things are brighter.
So you don't have to be superhuman, but you can be super at being human.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
It's a good way to put it. Because human beings were flawed creatures, right? We are imperfect beings. We make mistakes, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't always tend to learn from our mistakes the first time around.
No.
But you can be truly human by sharing your story. If you've gone through something, if you, even now, if you're feeling isolated, if you're feeling like you're not in a safe space,
Mm-hmm.
share your story, share what's happening. It might just surprise you how it can heal you and how you can benefit
Absolutely.
from it.
And if you're really in a place of it's not safe right now, then you need to not just share your story, you need to get the appropriate help, because there
Mm.
are hopefully refuges, whatever, will still be open right now.
That's
Or phone a helpline, go and get some good information to make yourself safe.
and I really do, and it comes down again to courage, to have that courage to pick up that phone, to make that call. And I think a lot of the times we blame ourselves for what's happening, right?
Absolutely.
We look inwards because we don't, I don't know, we don't understand, we don't recognize, and so we go and start the blame game, and then
And
use
then
it
we're
as
not supported by society, though. Society
yeah.
is so much victim blaming, and it's such a personal crime anyway that we do implode. It all
Mm.
goes in, like you say, the thought process, the blaming, the just all the blaming stuff and the shame. We blame ourselves.
It's sad, and it's not something that's changed overnight. But do you
Mhm.
think there's at least some progression over the last, let's say, 10, 20 years?
Absolutely. So when my book came out a few months later, the hashtag Me Too was revived.
Oh, right.
It
Yeah.
was spoke about 10 years ago with Tarana Burke, and then it was revived with all the Harvey Weinstein, everything stuff going on. And without a doubt, it gave voice to millions of women and men. And I know people, when I've spoken before, when I spoke in South Africa, actually, just last year, someone told me that he didn't share his story until hashtag Me Too happened. And he's now maybe older than me, late 50s, 60s. So it helped many people to find their voice. And just to find your voice, it can just change so much. It can just really just lighten so much. It can just lift so much away from you, because I do believe when we find our voice and we speak our truth, then we are standing in our power. And when
Mm.
we don't speak, we hold ourselves back in some way. It really is like a part of us is not integrated, or it's not fully alive in some way, and it's just really holding us down by not being able to speak about it. So yeah, it's like liberating to be able to say. So I did a TEDx in June of last year, and I'd never spoken to such a huge audience. There were just over 2,000 people. And I say it was the scariest moment in my life, but it was the most liberating moment in my life as well, because when I stood on that red dot, I just thought, well, this is me, I don't care who knows now, this is my story, and all these people are going to know it, but I'm really okay, even though I felt scared at the same time. So yeah, we can do the things that scare us, and actually doing the things that scare us are the things that grow us, speaking out and writing about what I thought I could never ever share years ago. It's actually the thing that saved me.
It's, but I love the title of the TEDx talk as well. It was called Unbroken, Speaking the Unspeakable,
Absolutely.
right? Giving voice to things that often just feels like you can't talk about it. You just don't, you want to maybe, but just saying the physical words, right? It
It's
just
hard.
doesn't come
It's
out.
really
It's a
hard.
difficult process.
I couldn't even say the word rape for years and years. It was just stuck in my throat. I couldn't even say it. But yeah, but I don't. People tell me that I'm brave or courageous, but I don't want to be brave. I want it to be normal. That we can speak about these difficult things, that we can have these hard conversations. That it's really okay to speak about the good stuff, but the difficult stuff as well, because when we don't speak about it, then we're just still kind of brushing it under the carpet, and we're minimizing it, and we're not bringing it to our consciousness, even though we all know what goes on. So by making it easier, more people can have these conversations, and more people can come forward, and hopefully it will bring understanding, and maybe it will stop it one day.
I think it's important to share the story and the knowledge. There was actually a Facebook post or something like that a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and this professor asked a question. He asked a question to the men in the room. How many of you, what do you men do? I can't remember the verbatim what it was, but what do you men do to protect yourself from rape? And then the men laughed. It's like, it never occurred to them. It's like, that's just not something that they think about.
Yeah.
And then he asked the same question to the women, and then the list come out. Don't walk alone. Always make sure people know you're going. It's like da 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 da. And it was astonishing, that simple perspective shift, right? About something that you've never even thought of, right? And how different it is for a woman than for a man to just walk down the road.
I know, but sadly, not many rapes do happen by strangers. Most men will know the person that rapes them, often in their own home, within their marriage, a friend of theirs, a date rape. It's unusual still to be jumped out in the bushes. I don't know if it's different in Namibia, South Africa, but here in the UK, most people will know their abuser.
And that makes it worse.
Yeah.
Because now it's not just some stranger that you can go to the police and talk to and tell them about. It's someone in your family or someone that you know. Yeah. And, sometimes they might even have a family. And so when you try and speak out about this, and you really should, regardless of anything else, because they did make the decision, you're afraid of not about hurting them, but by hurting the people around them, I would think.
Yeah, I was contacted recently by a woman who read my book, and she told me that she wakes up most nights and her husband's having sex with her at like 3 a.m. I said, well, he's not having sex with you. He's raping you unless you've consented to him having sex with you while you're asleep, and that's okay. I said, that's not sex, that's rape. And she said, I never looked at it like that. I said, absolutely, there's no clear consent there. And for me as well, only when I wrote my book did I realize I had been raped 3 more times before I was 18. I just thought I'd had a lot of bad sex because I became very promiscuous, which was a normal side effect. And when I was writing the book, I thought, I just said no and they just said yes, and they just carried on regardless. So we just diminish it, and we don't acknowledge really what it is. But I don't know many women that haven't had some encounter that's really not appropriate, and some sexual assault, rape, abuse, being flashed at, being sent dick photos, inappropriate messages, being groped somewhere on a busy bus. I'd like to say it's normal part of life, but it shouldn't be normal.
It shouldn't be.
No.
It is now, right? It's not that it's normal in the sense of it's acceptable. Absolutely. But it does seem to just be happening regardless of whatever is happening.
And that's the good part about #MeToo. It will never be acceptable. When my mum was working, she's now 80, it was normal for your boss to pinch you on the bum. My girls, if somebody tried that, the guy would be decked in 2 seconds. They know exactly what's on and what's not on. There's no way, if that was in a place of work now, it would not be acceptable. So that's good. The changes will be made within companies.
That's good. And even now, looking back, I mean, not that I was in a workplace in the 70s, but just thinking now, about how the words we use, the languages we use, right? So I had this meeting with this one person, right? And he keeps telling the waitress, my love, it's like my love this and all kinds of things. And I thought to myself, like, is this really the wording?
Is she really?
Is this really the wording you want to use right now, right? And it's like, and it's just like, it felt, that meeting left a bad taste in my mouth, I would rather say, right? Just because of the words and the phrasing you would use when talking to women or about women. And I thought, this is not the sort of person I want to work with, right? So I never called them back. But it was just like, it just leaves such a bad taste in my mouth, and I just feel like icky, it's like, yeah.
It's good.
And it's just like, it's just weird, right? It's just, and I just thought, it's like, is this really how you treat people, right? And yet, and when you ask these people about it, that's just the way they've been raised, right? But that's no excuse. That's not an excuse.
There's no excuse. I mean, it is amazing that obviously recently Harvey Weinstein was found guilty, but it took 111 women to come forward. Why couldn't it take one woman? Why don't we believe one woman when she says this has happened to her? So yeah, we still have a long way to go. There's still lots of changes, and you're seeing the way we use language, films, music, the way we portray women, the way we sexualize children over sex. You know, there's so much that needs to be changed. It's on all of us. The way boys as young as 8 can access rape porn sites on their phone, you know, men having jokes in the locker room. It's on all of us to make the changes. It's not just about women, it's about men as well.
Absolutely. And it starts with you. It really does. I was in a car driving from Windhoek to Swakopmund, and I was giving a lift to a friend, a woman at that time, and well, still at this time, she's a woman. And there was this Namibian boxer or some sports person that went to Brazil and was charged with sexual assault. And I was saying how terrible that is, right? And she then was defending him. And I said, no, you don't understand, right? It's like, yeah, but men will be men, right? And it's like, no, you don't get it, right? That person had a choice. Either I will do A or I will do B. That is not an excuse. Men will be men. Men are promiscuous, whatever. No. That's not all. That's not. Is that how you want to be? Is that the person? Are you then an ambassador of your country? Right? And I just looked at it astonished. It's like, how can you say that? You know, and it's just like, it was such a weird.
But there's a lot of victim blaming from women and women as well. And we all know that women can also be abusers as well. I know
absolutely,
many of my clients have been abused by women, family members. And it's really hard as a woman when you hear women victim blaming other women as well. But it's on all of us. And so I hope by speaking out that we educate people. And there's more and more of us that are speaking out. And we are stronger together. Our voices are definitely a collective, and they're definitely rising. And through #MeToo, there's no way I would have met the people on Twitter, for example, that I've met now, the American Hollywood stars. I'd never have had that connection. So it's amazing, you know, just because they are a Hollywood movie star, they're still women. We've still had this similar experience, and we do all support each other. So there's a huge community out there of people trying to make change, and it is happening.
And I think
and it's great that you challenged her opinions as well, because hopefully
I just couldn't believe it.
On it.
And the thing is, because this came from a woman, I was totally thrown for a loop, I would say, because like I didn't expect that sort of mindset from a woman, you know. And here I am defending the woman in a situation where the woman next to me was defending the man who was actually the cause of this entire thing. And it's just like, it felt like a very rare situation. But anyway, but it starts with you. You have to, I mean, really, right now, it's 2020, people. Seriously, if we can't tell what's right or what's wrong regarding sexual conduct and consent and all these things, it's like, what's happening? And there are still people out there that think that this sort of behavior is okay, that it's okay to do these sort of things. And it's just unbelievable.
I know. I think we really need to educate people from a really, really young age to go into schools, maybe nursery stage, and talk about what a healthy relationship looks like, and not just about sexual consent, but, you know, is it okay to hold your hand? Because when I was little, we were forced to go and give your granddad a kiss or your great auntie, and, you know, let it be about choice. Let the person make their own decision rather than be forced to do these things. So to talk about healthy relationships, respect, what all that looks like is so important for our young people.
I think that's the important thing, right? To teach children what a grown-up relationship looks like. You know, it's because, let's face it, your parents aren't always the model, the role models that they should be. And if something is happening in your home, you need to be educated to know what is right and what is wrong. And I think that's the important part. Maybe we should have in life orientation or something, you know, sessions on what it means to be in a healthy relationship.
Yeah, they are doing more and more work. In England, there's a project called the Pants Rule. So it's about consent. And so they teach children that nobody can touch you in the pants area where you wear your underwear. And if you do, you go and tell someone, even if they tell you to keep it secret and it's between us and don't tell anyone, this will happen. So you always go and tell. So it's a really easy way, because kids love pants. They love talking about their pants, but they can understand it, that, that is not for being interfered with, touched with by anyone. So they need to go do something about it. And it's making it okay to communicate these things, to talk about these things.
I think that's an important point to leave off, and to say that, you need to talk to people, whether you're in isolation, if you've experienced something, a relationship is a commitment to communicate. And if you have experienced something, then you need to tell someone. If you see something, say something, sort of thing. And I think I just want to say thank you for sharing your message, and for reaching out and just saying, it's okay. It's okay. And it's not your fault. And I think that's important to tell people it's not their fault.
Absolutely. 100% of all rapes are caused by rapists.
Yeah, that's
Nothing
true,
else.
right? It's never, it's never caused by the victim.
No,
it's
not
always
the clothes,
caused by
not
rape.
drink, not whatever. That's it. There's no other.
Yeah, it's not the clothing, it's not the drink, it's the person, right?
Absolutely.
So, and when you defend, it's like, oh, but she shouldn't have been at that part of the night. It's like, that's not an excuse.
That's victim blaming, and that needs to be stopped.
Shouldn't have been wearing that sort of clothing. It's like, yeah, but that guy still had a choice, right? Regardless of what that woman is wearing.
We know that babies are raped. We know that women that wear burqas are raped. So it's nothing to do with the clothing. Clothes do not cause rape.
Yeah, rapists cause rape. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. That's an important message. It's not your fault, and 100% of rape is caused by rapists, nothing else.
Yeah.
So yes, so I think we've covered a lot of ground now.
We did. Yeah, time flew by there.
Time flew by. Yeah, actually, I have to run now to another meeting, a launch of a big thing. But I want to say thank you so much for experiencing, for letting us experience, your thoughts and your message. And if you've got a question, if you've got a comment about something, and please leave a comment down below, and reach out to Madeleine, and I'm sure she will be happy to respond. And if you've got the story to tell, please stand up and tell it. It's important that more people understand that what is okay behavior and what is not, and more people need to hear that story, that it's okay to speak up and speak out. So Madeleine, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of MindMeld. I hope you stay well. I hope that, I hope you don't get infected. I hope that you just stay awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Lovely to chat to you too.
Okay. This has been a MindMeld episode. Please subscribe. Please leave a comment. Please share the messages and stand up and speak out. See you next time.